All right, we are live. Wednesday morning, news, live stream. Excited to be back to connect with the community and to find out what's going on in your world, but more importantly, talk about some things that I think is very relevant for the current season that we're in. And so before I move any further, let me check and make sure everything is flowing smoothly. For those that are tuning in, looks like there's a couple people watching in the chat, but not sure if they're connected via video. So give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know if we are streaming live. And so a part of one of the things I'm anticipating is that within the next few weeks, definitely month or so, there's going to be some real censorship when it comes to communicating anything outside of what the powers that be might want us to actually discuss, therefore hindering free speech. So with that being the case, I'm going to dive right in because I woke up this morning and had some things in my mind, and the very title of this discussion here about the current target, or what I believe could be a target towards a certain demographic, which happens to be the one that I've focused on heavily over the last couple of years because of the amount of financial obligations that the system owes to the baby boomer generation. And so I actually came across an article that I'm going to bring up in a moment that really got me to question, and just want to throw this question out there to you guys to see what you think. And then also, for the sake of just going far left field, might put on the tinfoil. And for those that might be new to the channel, when I put the tinfoil on, that means I'm going way out there and just speaking, off the cuff. So no script or no nothing like that. So let me check in with the chat, and then we will get started. I got a lot of articles I want to touch on. I might not be able to get to any phone calls because as you guys noticed, once I get started, it's hard to reel it back in. But we got Jojo Code 64 says a resounding yes. Excalibur says, "What's up, Mike?" Low Blood Pressure says, "What up, everyone? Ready for the discussion here in the U.S." Says, "Good morning from Seattle." We got Rolf, we got Chris, we got who else is in the chat? Excalibur. Okay, so we got a good amount of people here, and so. Okay, this current health situation. As of I think about 2 weeks ago, I defined it in a way that I think helps relay what I believe this whole health situation is about, and it happens to be something called the human malware. And what I mean human malware, simply put, in a comparison to a computer, you have the hardware side of things, you have the software side of things, something created to intentionally cause harm in regards to now the human body. And so here's two perspectives. If you believe that what's occurring now is natural, then you might not really get what I'm saying or even really care. So you might want to just dial back or go to another channel or something like that. But if you're on the other side of the equation where you believe that this ordeal we're currently experiencing is intentional and it's designed for a purpose, then we can discuss a little bit more. And then to really go way out there, or not too far out there, I want to share with you something that can hopefully help you understand what I'm trying to get at. And so somebody in the community reached out to me, I think it was last week, and shared something with me that brought more question marks to this whole ordeal we're facing. And so I actually happen to find the documentation. I want to share it with you that can hopefully help you better understand that I don't believe in coincidental events such as what we're experiencing now. And so one thing that I've always been a believer of is that whoever tries to control or run these type of operations, they usually give us a heads up or, a little foresight, insight into what the possible plan might be, not only to inform their own elite clubs, but also to just do a goodwill gesture and say, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what's possibly coming. Do what you will with it. And so there's been a lot of people out there that have highlighted on a lot of things that gave us insight. So here's a documentation I want to share with you. I'm going to start off with this. I'm going to put it in the chat and let you go do your own homework. But I want to bring this to your attention because I think that once this loads up, I can actually pull up on the screen. But I think you'll have a better understanding in believing that whatever we're experiencing now is not by accident. It is by design. And nevertheless, whether the governments around the world are all in sync with pumping the narrative of we got to fight it now, never mind the origins of it, because it's always good to go back to the origins of it to find out, okay, who did it, why, what, how, and how can they truly cure it or take care of it if they really wanted to. But I believe that this is all part of a greater agenda. And another thing I want to put out there is, like, as all this health scare globally runs its full course, what can we expect? And I got a couple of things I want to share with you there. But let me put it on the screen right here. Enough ranting. I want to give you some things to really consider. And so on the screen, you're going to see some documentation that I believe is worth your time. And so here is a report. And so this report here came out in 2010, and it was created by the Rockefeller Foundation, along with the collaboration of a lot of research and scientists and whatnot. But I appreciate the community member that brought this to my attention. And so this is simply, as it says here, scenarios for the future of technology and international development. So it's a 54-page PDF file, and it plays through a variety of scenarios of things that just possibly could happen one day. Take it for what it's worth. And so here, May 2010, this came out. It says this report was produced by the Rockefeller Foundation and Global Business Network. So it has 4 different scenarios, and then it gives the reasons as to why, who put it together. And what they try to spin off is the people who put this report together. The goal is to better help and prepare for possible scenarios that lie ahead, and how through philanthropist type of ordeals, the Rockefellers and other institutions can stay ahead of the curve in a sense. But 4 scenarios here. I'm going to go to the very first one, and I actually thumbed through it, and it gives more information as to the scenarios, why they're doing it. And they give 4 types. And so here on the screen, you see 4 different scenarios. It says, once crossed, these axes create a matrix of 4 very different futures. So it's basically forecasting a future that they see. So one of these 4 futures, according to this documentation, is something by chance we might see. And so you have one here where it's lockstep. You have hack attack because of technology. You have a clever together, we're united and all that stuff like that. And the next one is a smart scramble. And so for the sake of giving you some information here, I'm going to focus on lockstep. And so what you see with lockstep, you see cameras, surveillance, kind of what we're seeing now. And I'm going to read some things off the very first page, and you let me know if anything sounds familiar. So here we have lockstep. It says a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. So there is the subtitle for what this lockstep is about. And so within this first page here, you'll get a chance to see everything that, all of a sudden we're seeing right now. It says in 2012, mind you, this is role playing a scenario. So it reads just like a Hollywood movie script. It says in 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years finally hit. Unlike the 2009 H1N1, the new influenza strain originating from wild geese was extremely virulent and deadly. Even the most pandemic prepared nations were quickly overwhelmed with this virus stricken around the world, infecting nearly 20% of the global population and killing 8 million in just 7 months, the majority of them healthy young adults. Goes on more. It says the pandemic blanketed the planet, though disproportionately numbers died in Africa, Southeast Asia, Central America, where the virus spread like wildfire in the absence of official contaminant protocols. It says the Chinese government's quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine for all citizens, as well as an instant and near hermetic sealing off of the border, saving millions of lives, stopping the spread of the whatever for earlier than it goes on. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authoritarian and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at entrances, at communal spaces like trains and stations and supermarkets, So there you have it. In 2010, this scenario happened to be created by the Rockefeller Foundation. And it's very interesting that a lot of this stuff, just within the first paragraph, I didn't even get any deeper into it, we're experiencing right now. And so for those that are just tuning in, the reason I share this is because the top subject matter for today is this human malware targeting a certain demographic? And so my personal opinion is yes, it is. And so just from the very, just from this little scenario I read, I encourage you guys, take time, download it for yourself, read it, and find out more for yourself. And so what we're facing now, my personal opinion is, as it says here, does this human malware target retirees? And so my personal opinion is yes. And the reason is I came across an article that I want to share. And this particular article here, let me pull it up here. It happens to be about a case. Let me see if I can. Let me see. Okay, so hopefully this is it. Yeah, but this is a situation that's happened out in New Jersey. So it says the first person dies of this health scare in New Jersey. And after watching this video here, if I'm not mistaken, this is the correct video. The gentleman who no longer is alive, how this all played out in such a short time frame. And so to give you an idea, I will probably, let me see, should I play it? Let me go back and see if I can play some of it for you. And so I'm going to refresh this page, and then we'll probably get the original story. But here's something worth thinking about. And so it says the first person has died in New Jersey. And so it says Phil Murphy. No, it's Phil Murphy. It says, we are sad to report that the first death in the case of this health scare in New Jersey. So our prayers are with the family. And go down. It says the deceased man was identified as a 69-year-old John Brennan from Little Ferry. It says Brennan worked in New York as Yonkers Raceway, part of the Empire's casino, whatever. And so basically, this gentleman here, 69 years old, never left the country, never traveled, worked with horses. And apart from having interaction with people within the last couple of weeks, he caught it and he's gone. And I'm thinking like, wow, it says he has some health conditions or whatnot. But just this scenario here of someone who had and here's a picture of the gentleman right here, with someone who had no prior travel experience, nothing like that. He's no longer here. And see, 69 years old, currently still working, I'm assuming, working with horses. But I'm thinking like, wow, the numbers we've been given now are in the thousands. So I don't know what the actual total is now, but to my knowledge, there's 100,000+ people globally impacted, but only say 6, 7, 8, how many ever 1,000 deaths. But yet we are not giving information on the age range of the people that's been the most impacted, apart from a lot of people now talking about the elderly, those that have prior health conditions. And so to go back to this very same, in the very beginning, how I share with you scenarios of what could happen, that scenario script that I read a moment ago plays out too well to this current time frame, which happens to be 10 years after it was originally written. And then to have something where we have Justin March, I want to thank you, my friend, for that love offering, where we have a scenario that plays out too well, and it doesn't seem like it's a surprise whatsoever to me. And so not only do we have, as somebody mentioned in the chat, martial law. And so here, let me see, I got some more stuff here. In New York right now, I read something about, I think the National Guard will be kind of enforcing things in certain areas of New York, and they will be bringing people food and things like that. And so as a part of that script I just read, martial law is in there. And so things are just starting to look more like a pre-planned script for a movie than they are actually what happens to be told as this natural occurrence of whatever's happening. And so somebody says, can you shut a city like New York down? I think you can put troops, people with military equipment on the streets and deter people from going down certain streets, which will eventually quarantine people in a certain radius to where if they catch you on the streets trying to, drive your car, trying to walk, they can enforce that you either go back, or if you keep going, you might not want to keep going. So I think by eventually force, as well as some type of threat of having somebody at the end of the corner with some military artillery, you may not want to walk forward, would be my own personal opinion. Midas Man says, keep up the good work. I appreciate the love offering, my friend. Thank you. And so a part of that, I'm curious to find out what you guys think. So I kind of laid out some things that led me to believe that, this human malware is specifically targeted to address a certain issue that we all can admit that is currently underway. And so, as I mentioned last week, from the numbers I heard, there's approximately total population of the elderly on this planet, or not elderly, but those that are of the older demographic. I heard a number from someone that in the financial realm that mentioned there's about 2 billion people on the planet that are a little bit older. And so if this current situation targets or is designed so that it not even target, but it accelerates in people with poor health conditions already, then that 2 billion portion of the population stands to be at risk. And so just to give you some scenarios, my thought was, okay, just thinking this thing through a little bit. And so a couple weeks ago, we had the administration and the task force team saying there's no real threat, no need to do anything different other than what you're currently doing now. But now all of a sudden, we're starting to witness that, that perhaps we might want to really, or we should have been taking it serious a long time ago. And so I want to share some more stuff with you about here we have just how severe it is. And it happens to be primarily, from what I'm gathering on the news, heavily targeted on the coastal side. We got West Coast, East Coast. There's cases in the middle, but yet we're experiencing ghost cities and things of that nature and closures of a lot of things on the coast, and it's working its way in. But it says the closures. Here are some schools in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut that are closing. And so once again, by pure public admission of the need to address this as a serious concern, here we have events that are forcing people, children, students, you name it, to now rethink their current daily activity and stay home and no go to school. So they're setting them homeschool for kids or whatnot. And then there's more articles out here about, let me see, find this one. And so here's another thing about Seattle. So I'm assuming I saw somebody from Seattle checking in. It says it's apocalyptic. The current health scare turns Seattle into a ghost town. And so right now, without really knowing much apart from just reading the headlines, if we have anybody out there in Seattle, let us know what you see out there and what you're doing to address this. It says the center of the West Coast outbreak is Kirkland, a city in the northeast suburbs of Seattle, where dozens of people unexpectedly fell sick in February at the Life Care Center nursing group. And so from there, it escalated out. So once again, a nursing home. So, so this plays further, like none of those people, to my knowledge, in the nursing home center traveled abroad. And so just a group community spread. I would assume some of the caregivers that work there and people of that nature probably didn't necessarily travel, but how did that human malware make its way into a nursing group where, once again, think about the age range of those individuals. They're 50, 60, that they're older. And so I don't know the results of what happened there, but based upon the situation where I just showed you guys a minute ago in New Jersey, where a guy 69 years old, no traveling, never left the country, never did anything out the ordinary other than just live his life, contracted it, he's gone. So things that make you wonder. And then to go even further, so that's just my concerns on some of the health side of things. And then to take it even further, some of the things that have been done now by governments to help ease some of the financial pains. And so let me pull it up here. So if you guys have not been informed as to some of the recent announcements by governments, we're going to touch on what's happening in Italy. And so as of, I believe, yesterday, here we go.
Meet the first ever Mazda's.
Okay, I don't want to see that. Give me 1 sec. Let me mute this. I'm not sure why I got audio here. But here's a very first one of the many responses by the government here. It says Italy suspends mortgage payments during this health scare shutdown. And so we have an entire country that's in quarantine. And within the last 24 hours, if I'm not mistaken, the entire country, it used to be just the northern region. Now it's the entire country that now is pretty much on lockdown. And I've seen videos of patrol cars patrolling the streets on loudspeakers, telling people, unless it's an emergency for food to the grocery store or something like that, stay indoors. And are people listening? I would imagine some are, but the majority are not. But here's one of the things that we may not find this out, but I will be curious to further add to my hypothesis of how this could be targeted towards a certain age group, is that it says with more than 9,000 reported cases of this health scare and more than 400 related deaths, Italy just isn't just the epicenter of the health scare in Europe. So this is as of yesterday article. So out of 9,000 reported cases, 400 deaths. Here's a statistic we may not find out. Out of the 400, how many of those were of the older generation? So those are all things that I question and things that I wonder, and hopefully you do as well. And so I don't think they're going to give us those numbers, because if they were to further break that down into statistics of saying that it happens to be that, out of the 400, more than half, which would be my guess, would be of older age, that will play into more of people being able to formulate their own little hypotheses of how this could be a targeted strategic event for the older population, creating more of a panic and more fear, because now you're going to have the older generation now pretty much thinking or feeling as if that they are being targeted, or they were targeted directly. So just something to think about. I'm not sure why this guy's talking. Anyway, so enough of me ranting. I want to lay out a couple of things here. Now I want to hear from you guys, and let's talk a little bit more. And so it won't be on much longer. We just wanted to check in, share some articles. And now I'm about to go into the chat a little bit and see what's going on. And phone lines are now available. Feel free to give me a call, and we can definitely get your thoughts on this, or highlight at Rethinking a Dollar in the chat, and we can get it going. And then if you want to get your question on the screen, feel free to donate a super chat. I'll definitely bring it to the viewership attention, and we can address that. And so what else we got? It says you give the controller too much credit. What we got here? Give me some information there as to what you're referring to. It says, is one way to rein in entitlement spending on the older population, just reduce the absolute number of future recipients. Gregory, I would agree with that entirely. So I think a lot of this stuff that we're witnessing here, we won't be given the numbers as to the age range of those that are completely impacted, because they're going to give us just a broad number saying that it's whatever the number is, the total number of people either infected or those that have passed away. But they will not give us certain statistics saying that it's going to be, certain age range, because then again, it'll become too obvious if this is an intentionally planned strategic event. And so my little 2 cents there. Now let me go further. And so outside of having what appears to be a strategic event that's happening, so my thoughts are, this is what I'm gonna throw out there to you guys and see what you think. I got my pork out. I believe that this is a strategically planned event for the time frame, and that whatever it is that was created, this might be a little far-fetched, but let me know your thoughts. And once again, it's just us having a good back and forth. I think the way this thing is set up and the way it's going to continue to go, if there might come a time where once this thing runs its full course, everyone might be infected. Okay. And so now it's going to be a matter of, if it's intentionally created to do harm first to a certain demographic, I laid out a case that it might be those that are older who have some health issues, as a way of helping get rid of some of the financial obligations that's due to them, and to make it not look so obvious that they're basically defaulting through this type of event. Unfortunately, God forbid, hope is not that. But then again, if we all are impacted, directly infected, we all have some form of it in us, because I've also seen videos where there's been people that have recovered. And so Kenyon says 6. Give me Kenyon, what do you mean by that? Give me some more information as to what you mean by just 6. And then also thank you for the super chat, my friend. So here's an article here. It says young people capitalize on cheap health scare flights, and saying, if I die, I die. And so I think in the next few weeks, we're going to get a chance to see more of the total impact of how this plays out. But when this thing runs its full course, it's probably a likelihood that we'll all come across it and come in contact with someone or somehow, some way, who knows. Now it's a matter of, will it be for those that are a little bit, quote unquote, healthier? Will it be a situation where it'll run through like a flu type of event? But then the question will be, once the vaccine is rolled out and it's either forced upon everybody to take it out of being a national concern issue, and if you have not been affected directly, having the actual, human malware as it's labeled inside of you, are you obligated to still take it? So concerns, things to think about. But then on top of that, if we all come across it in one way or another, we all have some form of it in our body. And I'm also of the mind frame that I've heard about it being something time release and being something seasonal. And I've saw more than enough things that will lead me to believe that it's something that can flare up again. And if it's a trace of it in your system and there's no way of getting rid of it, then you can be carrying it for a long time, perhaps, and then next year address it, and it comes back even deadlier. So there's a lot of things that out there that are all worth considering, because technically speaking, the powers that be, our governments, are positioning it as if they are completely caught off guard. When I started this program off sharing with you some documentation that played out a scenario of how 10 years ago this scenario was given to us by the Rockefeller Foundation, which is one of the things where I would assume thousands, if not maybe millions of people probably had a chance to read this documentation to get an idea as to some things that would be coming down the line. And it happens to be right now. And so it says, can't keep their promises to the infected. Very true. And so I just wanted to connect today, share my thoughts, and let you know what's going on. And I haven't even touched on the financial ramifications, other than what I attempted to start off with by basically saying, as of right now, Italy is suspending mortgage payments as a result of issues right now. And then to take it even further, in Australia, it says pensioners, unemployed, tipped to get 500 health scare handouts. So in Australia, and this is as of a couple hours ago, it says pensioners and New Start recipients could secure a one-off 500 cash splash to help protect the economy from the impact of the health scare and a recession. So I've heard more and more about how much of a tight pinch the country of Australia is in right now. But here it looks like some type of an official helicopter UBI type of situation. It says, but the massive stimulus package will wipe out the modest forecast of $5 billion surplus for 2020, ending the Liberal Party's election campaign boost. The budget is back in the black. So Sky News reported on Wednesday that pensioners will secure 500. So once again, what can 500 do you? Not sure, but that's just a tip in the jar. That's just a tip in the jar, some crumbs of what I believe is going to be rolled out. And that's just going deeper into the financial sense. But this is all things that are happening now that I think you guys should be aware of if you haven't been informed already. And so going to dial back, but at 1 o'clock today, I had a chance to catch up with Leor Gantz. So we're going to be talking more in depth about these same subject matters here. So you might want to tune back in about an hour and a half, give or take. We're going to catch up and go from there. And so as always, it's been great hanging out, giving you guys some information, sharing my sites. I'm curious to find out what you think. For those who might watch the replay, leave a comment down below and chime in with more articles or anything out there that would further elaborate on the fact that this is a targeted malware event that is geared towards impacting the older generation first. And then if we all come across it in some form or fashion and have a part of it in our bodies, then how will it play off in the future when it comes towards the vaccination side of things? So I'm curious to find out. Leave a comment in the chat and we will connect again. And as always, I try to post different articles throughout the day on the blog. So I want to encourage you guys to visit rethinkingthedollar.com, and I post articles there throughout the day. And I would love to have you guys connect there, because I think also pretty soon YouTube might be shutting down some things as a way of keeping people from sharing their opinions. So we have a super chat here. Let me touch on this. It says, Gregory says, those not impacted or remain asymptomatic today may be activated by 5G next phase. Gregory, I don't doubt it. And so at this point, it's sad to say that because we're being positioned to be left out in the dark, anything is possible. So this very same thing you're mentioning here could be very, very well be a true case scenario. And so time will tell. But it's one of the things where we can look at it as a way of, two ways. Fearful opportunity where it's going to shut you in and it's going to be the death of you in and of itself, or somehow, some way, seeing something beyond the obvious and looking for opportunities with the health you do have to enjoy life you do have. And if you are of the older generation, Gregory, thanks for that donation. If you are of the older generation, do the best you can to, definitely stay prayed up and work on some things that could impact your health now, whether it be supplementing some things to try to put something in your system that can help you. And other than that, I've heard people mention about, when it comes to the older generations, stay away from family members that are sick and things like that. So once again, there's no game plan. There's no strategy. There's no how-to guide in this current moment, apart from me, once again, leaving and signing off with just a pure spiritual elements of, for those that are of faith. Everybody's going to be praying to somebody right now, but definitely me personally, put my trust in Jesus Christ. And 2 Timothy reminds me that we have not been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And so me personally, I try to remind myself that nothing that's currently underway now is a surprise to the Almighty. So I will pray for his will to be done on earth as it is in heaven, and enjoy the breath I have while I have it. So other than that, see you guys at 1 p.m. today with Leor Gantz. Hopefully you guys can tune back in, share this information, take definitely the PDF I put out there, read it for yourself, get a chance to understand more of the scenario of what was determined 10 years ago as a possibility, which happens to be playing out very well. And then other than that, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it back and forth. I'm going to do more of these live stream type of things and get your thoughts and hopefully get a chance to get some of your feedback as well. So other than that, be blessed, be safe. See you guys later.